So then we get to the point, like 20 minutes later, we get to the point of the selection process because one person gets a contract from this tryout. And there, a lot of people around me were saying like, hey, I think you're going to get signed, which then made me believe it.
Wrestling is life. Wrestling is life. Wrestling is life is wrestling.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Wrestling is Life is Wrestling with Cody Deaner. I am Cody Deaner, and I'm a professional wrestler. I'm a professional wrestling producer with TNA Wrestling. I am also a professional speaker, traveling all across the nation, sharing my story and the life lessons I've learned along the way. I am a father to 4 awesome kids and a husband to a beautiful wife, and I am a podcaster. This is my podcast. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you are back for more, welcome back. Welcome back to part 2 with my road wife, Tyler Tirva. If you don't know why I'm saying he's my road wife, then you didn't listen to part 1. Go back and listen to part 1 last week with Tyler Tirva. Get all caught up and hear the cliffhanger that we had at the end of last week's episode. Or maybe you are someone who's been supporting me by being a patron. You signed up for a free trial over at patreon.com/Cody Deaner. If you did, you would have got this episode early and ad-free, uncut, commercial-free, the raw footage, the video and audio, all up at patreon.com/Cody Deaner, as well as a bonus story, a doozy of a bonus story that is up right now. Do you want to hear it? You want to hear about a crazy, insane indie weekend that me and my buddy Tyler Tirva had? Go on over to patreon.com/Cody Deaner right now, and you can listen to it. Also, while you're doing that, why don't you support my sponsors, Rest When Dead Clothing. Go to restwhendead.ca, shop the entire collection. Go to their Instagram at Rest When Dead Clothing, and you'll see myself, Crazy Steve, Jody Threat, as well as a new member of the Skeleton Crew, Jake something. Oh yeah, we have a wicked awesome Skeleton Crew building over at Rest When Dead Clothing. Go check them out on Instagram and check out ceofit.ca. You want to get jacked like Jake something? Well, you might need a little bit of help. You might need to conquer, evolve, and overcome your next workout. We got the supplements that are going to get you jacked like Jake something over at ceofit.ca. You can support me in some other ways as well. You can go get a Cameo, personal video from me to you or loved one at cameo.com/Cody Deaner. You can also get yourself a Wrestling is Life is Wrestling with Cody Deaner t-shirt. Where do you get that? At prowrestlingtees.com/Cody Deaner. I have been traveling up and down the roads, both indie wrestling on the weekends. By the way, if you want to book me, go to bookcody at codydeaner.com and let me work an indie show for you, promoters. I've also been traveling up and down the roads speaking. I just got done a whole week of conferences. I got more schools I'm going to be visiting, both in and out of the province of Ontario, Canada, in and out of the country. I'm just jet setting, flying all over the place and loving every minute of it. If you want to learn more about my speaking career and also inquire about, hey, maybe bringing me to your school, and maybe you're a teacher, you're a vice principal or an administrator or a counselor, or a teacher or a counselor at a school that might be looking for a guest speaker, maybe consider bringing me to your school. I've got a lot of stories to tell, and I speak from every age group, from little young kindergarten kids I do presentations for, all the way up to college and university students. So you can learn more by going to chrisgrayspeaks.com. That's Gray with an A. chrisgrayspeaks.com. Learn more about my speaking career and how you can bring me to your school, event, or place of business. Speaking of business, if you would like to advertise on this podcast, there's a reason that Rest When Dead Clothing advertises with me every week. There's a reason that ceofit.ca advertises with me each and every week. Why? Because my ads work. I will not stamp my approval on a company unless I legit use the product and give it a thumbs up and think that it's quality. So if you would like me to advertise your quality business on this podcast, why don't you hit me up at ads@codydeaner.com. That's ads@codydeaner.com. And let's talk about how we can do some ads on this show for you. I would like to advertise right now at Tyler Tirva on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. This week's guest for part 2. We left off last week where we just decided, okay, we got to jump into a little bit of wrestling. I mean, we did talk wrestling because wrestling is life and life is wrestling, but I really wanted to dig deep on some of the stuff that he'd done on television. So last week I had started to ask Tirva what his first real big break was in the business. And he said, well, it was actually for the WWE, the largest wrestling company in the world. And it was on WWE Smackdown. Man, Tyler Tirva and I have a lot of similarities. My first big break was with the WWE, and it was also on WWE Smackdown. So was Tyler Tirva's, but bam, we dropped that one on you, and then that was a cliffhanger last week. We didn't go into what that meant, what that experience was like, and what the trajectory really that moment sent Tyler Tirva on in his career. So that's where we left off. That's where we're going to pick up today. If you get something from this conversation, and I know you're going to, please support by taking a screenshot of this conversation that you're listening to right now. Hit me up at Cody Deaner on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Also at Tyler Tirva on the same. Let us both know what you got from this conversation, and just put over Tyler Tirva because he couldn't be more awesome. He should have a contract on TV right now. And he's my road wife, and I love him. He's super talented. Go tell the world to sign Tyler Tirva. Hashtag sign Tyler Tirva. Hashtag sign Tyler Tirva. Hashtag sign Tyler Tirva. Everybody needs to know why Tyler Tirva is so awesome, and you're going to learn more why he's awesome right now in part 2 with my road wife, the Mr. Young, Fit, and Stupid Pretty Tyler Tirva. For those of people that are listening to this, and a lot of listeners, I have Sean Spears on the podcast, and they're like, oh, I know Sean Spears because he was in NXT, he was in WWE, he was in AEW, and this guy's been all over the world. He's been on television for a long time. And then they see the name Tyler Tirva, and they're like, oh, I think I've heard that name, but they're not super familiar because you haven't had a big contract and wrestled on TV. However, you have wrestled for the WWE, you have wrestled for TNA Impact Wrestling, you have wrestled for AEW. You've been in some very high pressure situations on television with some main event talent. You've been there and you've done that. You've done a lot that I don't think people are won't be familiar with. And you did it all at a fairly young age in the business. Was your of those 3 main companies I listed, was WWE the first one? Was that the first like big company that you got a break with and did something with?
Yeah, it was May 2010, May 23rd, 2010. Okay. So I was 2 years and 2 months into the business, and I wrestled on SmackDown in Ottawa against Kurt Hawkins, so now Brian Myers.
Yep.
And Vance Archer, who's now Lance Archer in AEW. So they were tagged together for like 30 days. It was quick. It's a minute 57 bell to bell. But my partner threw no offense. I threw 2 forearms, and Arn Anderson was my agent of the match. It was great.
Sweet, man. Yeah. To be in there with Brian Myers, you can't ask for a better brother to be in the ring with than your first TV, and then to have Arn Anderson as your agent, man. Like, what? I got 2 questions. One, how did that match tryout even come about? And then 2, what was some main takeaways from it? But let's start with, number 1, like, how did that even come about? How do you 2 years and 2 months into the business even get invited, let alone get in the ring?
Yeah. So the year prior. So in February of 2000, so I started March March of 2008 was my first professional wrestling match.
Mhm.
February of 2009, I went down and did an OVW camp. And at the time, that was when John Laurinaitis was still like part of part of the hiring, and so they still had it was the tail end of the relationship with OVW. So they came in. It was like a 2-day course. Rip Rogers just put us through like a few different drills, and there's about 60 of us, and we're doing matches. But that got me on like a WWE like list in order to get called. So then fast forward at like another year that I waited. The week before I had the match, I got myself booked in Buffalo. So I show up, I'm in my car, I'm in a pink dress shirt, dress pants, go up to the border guard because not allowed to work in the United States without a visa. So she's like, "Oh, where are you going?" I was like, "Oh, just going across the border to meet my girlfriend." I don't have a girlfriend in the States.
Yes.
she's like, "Oh, where is she?" I was like, she lives in like just in the south of Buffalo. So yeah. And then she's like, "Okay, what's her address?" I was like, "Well, we always meet at the mall. So like, I don't know her address. Like we just always meet there and then go over." And then she's like, "Okay, you're going to have to pull in." So pull in, I get fingerprinted, turned away at the border. So in the turn away,
your first time you got yourself booked for the WWE, you get turned away. Oh God.
Yeah. And then
you must have been shitting your pants, bro. Oh my gosh. That's like I don't want to put words in your mouth or feelings. All I know is I know what must have been happening in the pit of your stomach during that time. Okay. So you get turned away.
I didn't realize you could sweat through a dress shirt that hard. Yeah. Just sit there for an hour. Like I know I'm not in trouble. Like all I did was just like tell little fibs. So I don't have a girlfriend. I probably would have if they would have let me cross the border.
Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Young, fit and stupid pretty.
Yeah, exactly. And so so heartbroken. And then so pull over on the side of the road, call my the contact of the girl at the time that I got booked. And I was like, "Hey, like I just got turned away at the border. Unfortunately, I won't be there in Buffalo tonight." And she's like, "Okay, how do you feel about shaving your head?" And I was like, what? She's like, "How do you feel about shaving your head?" It's like, "Well, I don't know." She's like, "Okay, well, we'll think about it. But next week we're in Ottawa. And if, and like potentially that could be where your next one." I was like, "Okay, can I call you back?" She's like, "Sure, no problem." So I call up my buddy Highlander Robbie. And I was like, "Hey, so I just got this offer because I just got turned away at the border. So I'm on the side of the road right now." And I called them and they said, "How do I feel about getting my head shaved?" He's like, "Do it, brother." I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Get off the phone and do it."
I love that he said that because I didn't know about that phone call. And the fact that you even told her, "Can I call you back?" I had to think about it. My worker, wrestler, 2 years in the business instinct is going, "What the hell are you doing?" Not just screaming yes into the phone. So that plus, man, it's another side street. It's so important to have like mentors, people that we trust, that we can call in those moments. Highlander Robbie, thumbs up to him for giving you that advice. He's an awesome guy because he's been there, done that. It's awesome that you had him so you could go, "Hey man, what do I do?" Because again, in your defense, you're only 2 years in. You're learning here on the fly. Like you don't know what the hell to do in this situation. So awesome. You got a mentor. You give him a call. "What do I do?" He says, "You get back on the phone right now," and you say yes. Okay, so continue.
Boom, say yes. So show up next week in Ottawa. I don't think I wore the pink dress shirt because I probably didn't wash it yet at that point. But regardless, there's 16 of us guys. They line us all up in a row and they're like, "Okay, there's going to be a tag match." And so like right away I got picked out and I was like, "Okay, sweet." And then they're like looking through everyone else and they didn't pick anyone else. I was like, "Oh, this is weird." And then they left. And then they came back. They're like, "Hey, we're going to repick that tag match." And again, then they pointed at me. They're like, "You." I was like, "Okay, sweet. I guess I'm getting a tag match." And then they picked my partner. And, but then like a couple of guys that were in the row, they eventually got developmental contracts. So like I understand why they didn't get picked because a couple of the guys were like 6'4", and like 250. And I was like, okay, well, that's when I started to learn a little bit more about the business. So I think I'm getting this great opportunity, but really you kind of wonder, you're like, is this a great opportunity?
Yes.
Yeah. And but regardless of that, that's just more like, I learned that years after. I got to walk out. So in gorilla position right before walking through the curtain, that's when like the nerves started to set in. I was like, oh my God, this could be awesome. Oh my God. And there's like 15,000 people. It's where the Ottawa Senators play in Canada. So I'm like, okay, here we go. Let's go. And I look to my left and Vince McMahon's sitting there. And like, just like behind his, the computer, or there's
behind the desk and the monitor. Yeah.
Set on. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, I just remember going, oh, that's cool. And then they're like, hey, you're up. And I was like, okay. So like, cause there was a segment, Christian and Vicky Guerrero, I think they're doing like a segment up on the Jumbotron as we walk out. And I remember you hang a left and I look up and I was like, oh my God, that's what 15,000 people look like. Like, that is amazing. I take 2 steps and someone goes, hey, look at these jobbers. Dream over.
Yeah.
I got 2 seconds of, this is the most surreal thing that I've been dreaming about my entire life. And then some asshole goes, look at these 2 jobbers. And the second,
I love this.
The second that guy said it, which is okay, he took my dream away in that moment. That's fine. Yep. But then it was right to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no moment after that has ever felt different. Anytime that I've had like big opportunities in a TV match, they actually all feel exactly how my first one did.
In what way?
So you don't hear the crowd the same way. That's my biggest one, I think. Like when even when you're in front, like even like you're wrestling in a high school gym and there's 1,000 people, you can still see people and you can still hear conversations or stirs, or like there's so many things that you can pick out. But for whatever reason, I find whenever the camera's turned on in front, like in a TV match, that all goes away. I don't see anyone. I don't feel anyone the same way. Like it's a different world. Yeah. And they're not alike.
Yes. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Is there a different sense of pressure or calm or fear, or like where's that coming from? Is it where's that feeling coming from, do you think?
Honestly, like I usually don't feel anything.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking of am I do I need to turn an extra quarter turn here? Okay. Is the floor camera coming on me right now? I'm
hyper aware.
I'm hyper focused on the work aspect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you've got certain angles you got to kind of aim towards.
It's different.
You're serving different masters.
It's serving a different master when you're working TV. And I mean, again, the wrestling fan listening to this doesn't fully understand, and even some of the wrestlers that haven't done TV don't understand, but it is a different animal. But to be able to perform under pressure is key, or you're not going to get asked to do it again. And you did, so it meant that you did a good job, even if you only got two forearms and then you were done. Did you get any feedback from Arn Anderson after that, or was it you were just in there so little amount of time that you didn't, or how did that go?
Well, I remember watching. So I'll get to that. So I remember the finish. So the finish, I take a reverse DDT. Boom! I swear I got half knocked out as I pop up. I'm like, and then the finish is Brian Myers is coming off the top. And I remember telling him this because I worked him in Impact last year. So he's coming off the top. I thought his elbow drop comes across my neck, Macho Man style. Yeah. Nope. As I lean to pop up a little bit, he's about 6 feet from me. And I realize, this is coming right across my ribs. So I wasn't braced and ready for it. So bang, he drops that elbow. And then I just, in the replay, I turn and I do this. And you could just see all the veins in my neck popping out because it knocked the wind out of me so hard.
Oh, nice.
So as I'm getting pinned, as he hooks my leg, I'm just a rigid body. And I remember I couldn't breathe. So it's just like, and then I could breathe when he put my leg down.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
And then so I crawled, like they had an in-ring promo after the match. So I'm crawling to the back, and then eventually we get to the back and like, hey, Aaron, thanks so much for that opportunity. Any feedback? Nope. That was great. I was like, okay. If it was bad, he'd tell me.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But that was the tough part. He couldn't also get more.
Yeah. And the thing is this, I learned this, my first dark match that I got was very similar. There were Arn Anderson was there, Fit Finley. There was a bunch of agents, and I come through the curtain, and I got praised heavily for the match. I was like, that was awesome, and they made my opponent shake my hand. I wrestled Muhammad Hassan. I think I've told this on the podcast before, so I won't go into detail. However, I was talking to Tommy Dreamer about this, and we were talking about when you learn that you're not the focus because you're not the contracted talent, the brutal thing about to say is you don't matter. Right. And that's a really harsh version of it, but it's not that bad, but it kind of is in some ways because you're not the contracted talent. So he only has so much time in the day. He's got another match he's got to produce probably. He's got other things. It's like he's not going to sit down for 10 minutes and critique your 2 forearms and the way you sold an elbow drop because 1, he doesn't have time, and 2, you're not under payroll. So as long as you don't shit the bed, as we say in wrestling, good. You did a good job, and you didn't. So it's like, okay, yep, you did good. He's not going to sit down and go, well, you should have done this and turn this way, and here's the floor cam and all this stuff. It's like, no, that's not his job for you that day. And I learned that. I got praised, and I'm like, they told him, Muhammad Hassan, go shake Cody's hand right now. He just put you over. He made you look so good. Da-da. I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting all this praise. I'm shaking the hand. So I go, yeah. So like anything I need to know? They're like, nope, you did awesome. Then they literally turn their back to me, sit down with Muhammad Hassan and have a half-hour conversation with him about why he sucked and what he needs to do to get better. And I'm like, I didn't learn until later. Go, wait a minute. If I did so awesome, why don't I have a contract? And if that guy's getting yelled at for half an hour, why does he have a contract? And why aren't you spending more time with me? What? And then it was, that was a learning experience for me. That was like, this isn't your time. Right. This isn't about you. You did your job, but the job wasn't about you in that moment. It's about the other guy. Your time will come. Maybe there will be a day that you get to sit down and have that conversation, but today's not that day. That's not your role today. Yeah. That's a hard pill for some people to swallow.
Absolutely. There's some guys that go one and done, right? They'll have a non-televised dark match. Like there's a few guys in Ontario that have had it. Mm-hmm. And then boom, within like maybe a match or 2, and then they're done.
Yes. So many guys. Yeah. So you didn't respond that way. We've talked about this a lot in this conversation, how like pressure or negativity that something might break somebody, it doesn't have that response. It actually motivates them. What's the afterglow? We talked about that earlier too. This afterglow of the match, but then like that afterglow, maybe for a week after. I know for me, like, man, I just wrestled in WWE ring. Like, oh my God, I've wanted to do since I had memories. I wanted to do this. Explain that feeling to me, and then how does it motivate you rather than go, I don't want to go wrestle in front of 10 people in Tilsonburg anymore. No, I'm gonna keep moving forward.
I found parts of it really hard because you're like, 2 years, 2 months in, boom, I just got this match on WWE Smackdown. And then now you have no momentum for anything else. So I didn't know enough. Like I didn't at that point. I hadn't even watched TNA Wrestling that was on. Like because I was always like growing up, I watched a lot of WWE, and so like I wasn't even aware of all my opportunities of what I could do. because my brain at the time and my mindset was WWE or nothing.
Same. Yeah.
And so I was extremely hard on myself. So like I had to learn how to this is more than just a year's worth, because I got injured shortly after.
Okay.
So I tore my ACL, my MCL. Like I had quite the injury. And so WWE, like they had called me for extra work a few months after, and I couldn't. I was like, the girl's like, "Oh, have you been wrestling lately?" And I was like, "Kinda, not really." She's like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "Well, I kind of tore my ACL, so I've got a knee brace, but I'll be fine to have like a tryout match." She's like, "If you show up with that, like you're never gonna get a job." I was like, "Well, I guess I'm not going to be able to do the extra work then." And what turned out to be, that was when Psycho Mike and Johnny Wave were the bag guys for Cody Rhodes at the time when he was doing bags over the face.
Interesting.
So I was told that I got called first, but didn't get to show up, which is again still super early in. So now I think, okay, I just lost that opportunity. There goes the dream.
Yeah, every single roadblock doesn't seem like a roadblock at the time when they're that young in. It seems like a brick wall that's been constructed and is impenetrable, and there's no way around it.
Yeah.
But you realize that it's not. You realize that it's just a speed bump or a roadblock, and you keep moving forward. So then what do you do?
So after my surgery, I had to wait 6 months for my surgery. So I think I still had a month and a half at that point when she called me. Okay. I actually returned from an ACL injury. It was 2.5 months. You're supposed to be 9, but I wrestled with a brace and just heavily taped. I wrestled Brent Banks, my first one. And I remember while I was off, I really taught myself how to wrestle a completely different style. So I watched a lot of early, like mid 90s Shawn Michaels, and I started to learn how to wrestle myself a little more and be more showy in how I work. And so, which brought me a long way. And then I was able, at the time you could pay so I wasn't getting a call. This was like a couple months after I'd come back. I hadn't got a call from WWE, and I was like, what do I do? So I was like, well, at the time there was the last FCW tryout was coming up before WWE went to the Performance Center. Their last tryout, some people could pay to go, and they would also have invites. So I was like, what's $1,000 US? I was like, I waste money on way worse things than this. So I went against every advice people ever tell you, because they say to never spend a dime and like never fly yourself somewhere and all those different things, which I do agree with things at some point, but I think it was my best thing came from paying on this. So I spent $1,000, flew myself to Tampa. I did the 4-day tryout. At the end of the tryout, on the day of the selection day, me and a few other people, Sammy Callahan, who else? There's Buddy Murphy, couple other people. We got pulled. There was a little warehouse to the next door, so we get pulled into the warehouse. They're like, oh, "Okay, take your shirt off. We're gonna take some pictures." I was like, "Well, I'm in a suit." So, anyways, I take my shirt off. They take pictures, and so I walk out of there. There's like 4 of us that got pictures, but they did them in rotations, and like other people are cutting promos while this was happening. And I was part of the first group of 13 that did promos. So I was like, I think I'm getting a contract.
Oh man. I want to take a pause from our conversation to tell you about today's sponsor, ceofit.ca. Their byline is simple: conquer, evolve, overcome. Do you need to conquer your next workout? Or maybe you've hit a plateau in your exercise game and you need to evolve. Or you're starting to find there's some obstacles in the gym that you can't overcome. CEO Fit will help you conquer, evolve, and overcome any obstacle in your way with their top of the line supplements. Whether it's a pre-workout to help you crush that next cardio session. Or, man, you did crush that cardio session and you need to fill your muscles back up with some high quality protein. We got that for you at ceofit.ca. There's also creatine, vitamins, test boosters, seasonings, and syrups to make your meal not just tasty, but healthy too. Oh, I can't forget, they're not just going to help you work out your muscles. They're going to help you work out your brain. They got nootropics for brain function right now at ceofit.ca. Are you a Canadian that you've listened to commercials like this before and then you jump on the website and realize, wait a minute, this free shipping or cheap shipping that they're talking about doesn't apply to me because I'm Canadian? Well, guess what? ceofit.ca is a proud Canadian company, and we are offering to you Canadian listeners any order over $120, free shipping. Now, you US customers and listeners right now might be going, wait a minute, what about me? Well, I got something for you too. It doesn't matter how big your order is. You might go over there and go, man, I need it all. And you get 10 boxes full of these awesome supplements. It's going to cost you $6. $6. Any size order, anywhere in the United States, $6 in shipping. Not only that, American, with the conversion rate, any price that you see on ceofit.ca, it's going to convert it to US dollars. So everything's going to be even cheaper for my American customers. So you need to conquer, you need to evolve, you need to overcome. Well, there's only one place that you need to go, and that's ceofit.ca. That's ceofit.ca.
And then we get to the point, like 20 minutes later, we get to the point of the selection process because one person gets a contract from this tryout. And there, a lot of people around me were saying like, hey, I think you're going to get signed, which then made me believe it because like, I didn't believe it as much. Like I felt like I did really well. I left my best effort there, but I knew my promo was only a 7 out of 10 at best because I made sure that I did something safe instead of taking a risk.
Okay.
And Buddy Murphy got selected for the contract. But another learning curve.
Now, I wanna focus in on that thing you just said, because that really stood out to me and interests me. You decided to play it safe rather than take a risk. Is that a regret for you? Are you saying that with a little bit of regret in your voice, or
No, I was
not?
new to promos.
Okay.
So I had that was where I learned my biggest area of opportunity was so I got feedback from that camp. Apparently they don't get the first email always says like, oh, we don't give you feedback, blah, blah, blah. So I sent an email back to Kenya. I was like, hey, can I get some feedback? I got a breakdown. You're good at everything. You're not great at either of these things.
Okay.
At the time, I didn't have a great body. Could have had a better body. So I didn't have a great TV body in a body guy era.
Yes.
I didn't have a great promo. I had a good promo. And what was it? And then look, or side. What am I missing? Sides. Too fired up.
Oh, you got some feedback, which is a good thing. Yeah. Okay.
I got feedback basically saying you need one of these to stand out as a reason to sign you. So I was like, perfect. Now I've been told what I need to do. So I got better at promos.
Yeah.
Because I was like, because up to that point I hadn't done them. And for some reason I decided to use my French because I remember when I filled out, because I did in elementary school.
I remember this now. I remember talking about
French immersion. So I decided to hit a line in French, and then I was like, but I'm not fluent anymore. I was just good until I was 13 at it.
But that's not a bad idea, man. That was at a time when they were like, people were getting signed because of their nationality and language, and because they're really starting to expand worldwide. So that was not a dumb move on your part at all.
And that was one of the questions too in this, in the questionnaire, second language. So then that's when I was like, I just wrote the middle of the road answer, not yes, but I'll show you. So I don't regret not trying to hit a 10 out of 10 promo, because I still it's it's dead silent. It's 1 minute long only. Don't go over your time.
Yep.
You have a handful of a list of rules. So safe isn't the wrong answer when you've saw me for 4 days and you know I can move and I'm going to be good in the ring and no one at the time could touch my cardio on this one drill.
Yeah.
So like it was, and I say that confidently because like I remember we had Seth Rollins Seth Rollins was the NXT champ at the time. So he was the guest speaker of the day. And I had like this out of body experience. Like, so we're doing, the grape squisher drill. So you're hanging onto the top rope, you lean back and your knees have to go above the second. And I just had this out of body experience where I was telling myself over and over and over again, obsessively, that like, you have to go faster. And that's the only way you're getting a contract. I've never had a gear and a switch like that in my entire life. We were at the 10-minute mark of the drill and they shut it off. And like the other 3 guys in the ring had quit over a minute before I was done, like before they stopped. But I was like, no one's breaking me today. It was like, it's the coolest moment of my life. Yeah. And I've only told that like to like maybe 8 people. Cause I'm like, it sounds so conceited of like, oh, like no one could touch my cardio, but it was a physical out of body experience. Like, oh,
so we've had
watching. I was like, give me a job, bro.
Yeah, dude. So there's been so many. It's funny. There's been so many similarities of your experiences to mine that I didn't even realize. Even though we're road wives together, I'm learning things today. I had the exact same thing happen when I had a WWE PC tryout in 2014 or 15, I think. I was the oldest guy there. I'd been in the business the longest. I think I wasn't really being looked at as per se someone they're going to give the big contract and feature on TV. I think I was being considered more as a player coach role. And so I think they were going to be a little more lenient maybe on like my cardio ability and things. Like, oh, he's the journeyman here, you know? So, but he's still got to do it. He's just got to prove that he's willing to try it. But my mentality was, fuck that. I'm going to outwork every single person here. And we had to do the drill, the punching bag drill where the drop down drill, right? Yeah. So just to quickly explain to people, you got to hit the ropes, you do a drop down, then you do a burpee up, and then you drop down on the other side of this bag that's in the middle, then you burpee back up to your feet. You cannot go to your knees, you go up to your feet, you hit the ropes, and you come back and do it again. You had to do that 10 times. Then you had to get out and go to the next ring and do it. Then you had to get out and go to the next ring to do it. It was guys and girls were dropping like flies. And in the middle of the very first ring, when I hit that first kind of, I guess, plateau or thing where my body's going, like it's about to conk out on me. I had this out of body experience to go, nope, you are going to do this and not just do it, but you're going to do it faster and better than everybody. And I just maintained that speed for every single ring. I got to the last ring and there was a guy in NXT. I wish I knew his name. I don't think he's there anymore, but he comes up to me and he goes, bro, I've never seen anybody do it that fast. I'm like, what? And he's like, I don't know how you did that. You're the oldest guy here. That was fucking awesome. And he just fist bumped me. And he's like, dude. And I was just like, fuck yeah. Like, I'm getting all fired up just talking about it now. But like, same thing. Like, that's a good lesson for people that like have a negative mindset that like they think that their body can't do something or they're not physically able to do something. You know, there's like, you know, the power of the mind, this cliche thing about the power of the mind is so true. You can physically do things that you don't think you're able to do if you just switch the mind and tell your mind, no, I am able to do that. And not only am I able to do that, I'm going to be able to smoke that. I can kill that. I can conquer that. And then your body can do physically amazing things simply because your brain is telling it that it can.
Yeah.
I mean, you know this. I'm speaking to the choir, but I think it's an important lesson that somebody needs to hear that's listening to us right now. You and I have both experienced that. And describe it as an out-of-body experience. I'd explain it the same way. It's really interesting because it's literally you come out of your body almost because you have to, because your body is saying you can't, right? So then you come out of your body and go, no, not listening to you, body. And you're like hovering over it and going, boom, I'm doing it. and then you rock it. It's so cool and hard to describe to people.
Oh yeah. Until you unless someone has it, you don't know how. There's no words.
Nope, there's no words. But as the whole time you're telling that story, I'm like, yep, I knew exactly.
And you're feeling it again.
I'm feeling it again, and it's like, man, it's so cool. I know you got to show you that you got to go to. So I want to be respectful of your time, and I appreciate it. And I know we're both fired up from telling our respective out of body experience stories. And I haven't got to almost everything that I have on this page in front of me of things that I could maybe talk to my road wife Tyler Tirva about. I've talked about almost none of them. What I think I want to do, if you're cool with this, is I would love to have you on again. And this is already going to be a 2-parter, but there's some people that I talk to that I'm like, man, I got to talk to them again. I got to do a part 3 and a part 4. And I think my road wife, Tyler Tirva, is going to have to be one of those people, because there's so much here that we haven't even scratched the surface on in both our experience together, but even more so your journey in wrestling, your experiences. I mean, we haven't talked anything about your AEW experience, which I think a lot of wrestling fans would like to listen to. We're not going to even touch that today. We're going to come back. We're going to do this again. And then maybe we'll talk about some AEW. We haven't talked about your Impact Wrestling gut check experience, or the experience that you said, oh, you got to wrestle Brian Myers recently with Impact, with now TNA again. We haven't talked about any of that. We'll just do a little teaser and just say, hey, we will talk about that, but we'll do that next time we're with Tyler Tirva. And then maybe by the next time we talk, if it's a couple months down the road, man, maybe we'll have something even cooler to talk about, in the sense that you'll be on TV making a boatload of money with the TV contract. And then when that happens, we're going to have you on again. But one thing that I have here that I really just kind of quickly wrote as a side note really on my page, but I think is a good way for us to end, because we have people listen to this show that I know, because I've had these conversations both with people who listen to the show and at the merch table. We were talking about merch table conversations earlier, of people are like, oh, I always wanted to be a wrestler, but my time ran out and I never did it. Or even more relatable to a lot of our listeners that maybe wouldn't say that, they say things like, yeah, I really respect you or envy you because you're doing a job that you love. I have this thing that I really like, but I don't have time to do it because I got to pay the bills and I just got this job. One of the things that I say to those people is, hey, man, or woman, depending on who I'm talking to, it's like, you can have a side hustle, and while you're doing that side hustle, you can still do the other responsibilities that you have. And maybe one day that side hustle will become your main hustle. But don't stop that. Stop even trying that before you even give yourself a shot at that. I think you, and myself included, before I signed my contract again on TV, my side hustle for so many years was indie wrestling. And it wasn't my main source of income, but I was making good money as a side hustle. I know from being your road wife and riding down the road with you, and you and I laughing and counting our merch money after we've worked at a gimmick table, that we're doing really good as a side hustle for that. So I think that you can speak to that, maybe, and maybe say it in a different way, or at least speak to how have you been able to make this side hustle known as indie wrestling a successful one for you, and been able to maintain the momentum / dream of this can be my main hustle, even if it's not right now. It's pushing me towards that. I know that's a loaded question and maybe not as direct, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think, trial and error is what's made it more successful over time.
Oh, sure. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Say for merch, for instance, sometimes you release a shirt, you've bought 50 of them, and it stays on your table for 4 years.
Yeah.
Just to get rid of some of that last one size, you suddenly have 6 smalls, and you're like, I just sold 40 smalls in 2 months. Like, what the heck just happened? Like the math just doesn't add up. But people are like, I don't want that blue shirt with all these hashtags on it or whatever. Maybe.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
And you just get stuck with one size. But I think like, absolutely, like I completely agree with you. You shouldn't quit your main job though until your side hustle is your main job.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, that's kind of the mistake that they make. I think a lot of people make too much of the mistake of, you know what, I'm going to go all in on wrestling, but they're not ready to do all the things that makes them all in. So like sometimes people go all in on wrestling and they don't have enough money to even just front the merch that they need in order to make the money once they go wrestle. Like they don't have the ideas or the branding within what they're doing in order to turn it into a hat that everyone wants or turn it into whichever. Or trading cards, right? Like they don't even have the pictures taken, but they want trading cards. Like,
yes,
like that happens so many times and you see it so many times. And I think that's the biggest mistake. Like, absolutely. Have I been wrestling more in the last few years? Yeah. But it's also because I want to wrestle more. Because sometimes in your life, I don't think it's important to wrestle more because you might need to get better without wrestling more. And then,
what do you mean by that? Better in what way?
So you know what I mean by that. Better in every
I know, but I know what you mean. But there's people listening that are going to go, what does he mean by that?
So a lot like. And say you've tweaked your arm, so you don't have two shows coming up or whatever.
Okay.
You can still watch wrestling and remove one of the persons in the match and plug yourself in. So like I'll dissect and watch a match event. Like I'll watch any match and I'll just figure out how does Tyler Tirva wrestle Cody Deaner who's up on the screen.
Okay.
So there's because there's so many components and elements of a match. And to me, those are all interchangeable. Everything we do is interchangeable, the same as people are interchangeable when we have different matches. And so I try to even when the last seminar that I taught, I did a match and I was Triple H against Randy Orton. And I just walked through the match and I showed them Triple H versus Randy Orton. And then they were like mind blown because they're like, how do you do that? And it's like, because when you understand all these different components, everything doesn't matter. So everything we do, but you have, I guess I'm not the best way to explain it is you can make yourself better without being in a ring.
Yeah. Yeah.
It might mean you got to lift weights. It might mean you got to cut promos in front of the mirror.
Yeah.
Right?
So I think what's applicable to that, to the civilian listen to this, that, here's two wrestlers, we could dissect an entire wrestling match and it would be kind of they don't have a certain level of understanding, but what I like to do with this show is attach a life lesson that anyone can understand. And really what you're saying in that I think is applicable to anyone listening to this is there's a lot of different components to whatever decision that you have. If somebody listening to this right now has a passion or a dream or a business that they want to start and they don't know where to start, or they're shooting themselves in the foot and not allowing themselves to even walk because they think they have to run. It's like, no, you can actually even crawl right now to get this thing started because there's so many different components. You don't have to jump into the game and be the starting pitcher, right? You can actually not even be in the game, watch the game, pretending that you're the pitcher, and ask yourself, how am I going to put myself in that position? What do I need to work on? What do I need to do? And that's true in baseball. It's true in wrestling. It's true in whatever business or anything that you're trying to do. Look, dissect the different elements of it and work on one thing at a time. I know I have talked about this before, even when wrestling each other. It's like, what do you want to work on today? Right? What do we want to do? Do we want to really work on our selling in this, or what do we want to really focus in on? It's like, oh, this match is going to be all about, whether it's working this body part or selling in this way, or, hey, let's see if we can get the crowd to respond this one way. It's like, you don't need to do it all at once. You can do it in segments.
Absolutely.
And I think you, as a trainer, training people, as a business person, when you're having people, you're managing people. I mean, I think that's just a really good life lesson in so many different ways.
Absolutely. And I like, with clients, I'll hear they're like, a lot of their things come down to they're too stressed. They'll never say that, but the majority, when they learn to control a few more, just like the stressful things that are going on in their life,
yes,
it will actually take care of. Now they're going to sleep better. Oh, well, if we sleep better, we lose our body fat. If we sleep better, we gain muscle. If we sleep better, my brain works better. So I'm not as irritable with my partner. Like, so like, I've always found that, like, in a lot of conversations, it's not the thing I'm directly being told with, like, with a client, like, it's always something hidden. They're like, oh, like, I just don't have any energy. And it's like, okay, well, how many hours you sleep last night? And like, so many things come back to like some of those same fundamentals, but every basic we've learned, like, especially in wrestling and in life, everything comes back to our basics. So if we have great basics, things will take care of themselves a lot better.
I agree wholeheartedly. All right, man. We've talked about earlier working the merch table, working side hustles. We were just talking about that. I got a little side hustle with this show in that I try to make a little scratch, a little bit of coin by offering my listeners a bonus story. And the only way they can get that bonus story from me and my guest is by heading on over to patreon.com/Cody Deaner, and they get an exclusive bonus story that they only get if they sign up. They can do a free trial and they can get this bonus story. Can you stick around for a few more minutes? I know you got to go work your indie show and work the merch table and do your awesome side hustle that I know one day will be your main hustle. So I'm going to be respectful of your time, but can you stick around for a few more minutes? Give me a sweet bonus story for my patrons as we end the free version of the show here. Can we do that?
Absolutely.
All right. And before we do that, let's let you plug yourself and your side hustles. Is there anything that you want to promote as we close here? Whether it's an independent promoter that wants to book Tyler Tirva on their show, which I highly recommend, or your training, whatever it is, give us the spiel, plug it right now. So everyone that, is just learning about Tyler Tirva today is now going to go follow Tyler Tirva and follow everything that he's doing.
Who's that? The dapper, dimple, dangerously delicious Mr. Young, Fin, Stupid, Pretty, the Saturday Night Delight, Tyler Tirva. So yeah, Mr. Young, Fin, Stupid, Pretty, you can catch me on Instagram at TYLERTIRVA, or just Tyler Tirva, but for spelling, it's always TI, not TR. So TYLERTIRVA, which was also one of my promos that I did at that FCW tryout.
Oh, sweet.
Really my name in it.
I've never heard you spell your name in a promo.
I do it the odd time, and it makes me laugh because I don't tell that story, and this is the first time I have.
Oh, sweet. So there you guys, hey, the free listeners got an exclusive story today. That you gave that one away for free. So before we head over to the pay one, yes. Sweet. Yes. So Tyler Tirva.
Yeah, Tyler Tirva. And so the main thing is, if when it comes to your health, your fitness, your nutrition, your training, even if you guys just have any questions, for starters, there's no money up front of any sort. If you just need someone as a point of reference right now, and you need someone that's going to start to gear you towards how you get on track and how you get started in any aspect of whatever you want to work on, from a nutrition standpoint or from a working out standpoint, there's a lot of fundamentals that need to be done on your own before you should consider hiring someone to work with you. So feel free to send me a message, though, via email at turvatraining@gmail.com, or same thing with my Instagram at Tyler Tirva, and also Facebook at Tyler Tirva as well. So I think that's it. Those are my main plugs.
Yeah,
with the dapper, dimple, dangerously delicious Mr. Young, Fit, and Stupid Pretty.
Well, Mr. Young, Fit, and Stupid Pretty, my road wife, thanks for doing this. I appreciate you. I love you, man.
No problem. Thanks so much, man. That was fun. Love you too.
that's going to do it for another episode of Wrestling is Life is Wrestling with Cody Deaner, and part 2, the final part with Tyler Tirva. I love that guy. He's one of my best friends in the business. I'm proud to call him my road wife. And like I said at the top of the show, hashtag sign Tyler Tirva. Somebody do it right now. Get this guy on television. He's got everything down, whether it's his in-ring work, his promo skills, his look, how he communicates with the fans, you know, how well he spoken he is, just everything. He's an all-around amazing performer in every aspect, and he's just a really good dude. And you caught that in this conversation. If you listen to part 1 and 2, go tell a friend that you just listened to this conversation. Tell them that Tyler Tirva is awesome so that they can go figure out why he's awesome, and tell them to go listen to Wrestling is Life is Wrestling with Cody Deaner. And if they want to hear a bonus story, you haven't got enough of Tyler Tirva, well, go listen to a wild, insane, crazy weekend that Tyler Tirva and I went on as road wives together by listening to the bonus story right now over at patreon.com/Cody Deaner. You can listen to it for free by signing up for a free trial. You can also support this podcast by going to cameo.com/Cody Deaner. Get yourself a personal video from me to you or a loved one. Get yourself a Wrestling is Life is Wrestling t-shirt at prowrestlingtees.com/Cody Deaner. Support our sponsors over at restwhendead.ca and ceofit.ca. And just keep being awesome. Keep coming back for more. And if you want to see more of me on an independent wrestling show in your area, tell them, hey, I've been listening to this sweet podcast with Cody Deaner called Wrestling is Life is Wrestling, and I know that he's still doing indie shows. He wrestles for TNA, but he still works the indies. He still works the merch table, and he does seminars for talent before shows. Maybe you should do that. Well, why don't you tell your local promoter about me and tell him, hey, hit him up. Book Cody at CodyDeaner.com. That's book Cody at CodyDeaner.com. And hopefully I got some room in my schedule for your indie show, because I love the indies and I would love to do more. Speaking of indies and where I'm going to be, if you're listening to this when this episode drops, I got a full weekend. Tomorrow, Friday, April 26th, I'll be in Toronto for Super Kicked Wrestling, going one-on-one with Psycho Mike. The following day, I will be traveling all the way up to Timmins, Ontario for Rock Solid Wrestling. You've heard me talk about Rock Solid Wrestling on this show before. You actually listened to me talk to the promoter and owner of Rock Solid Wrestling, Tornado. If you haven't, go back in the archives. He's the first really Ontario indie legend before the legend of Tyler Tirva that I've introduced you to. I introduced you to Tornado. So I'm going to be hanging out with Tornado tomorrow, or no, not tomorrow. Tomorrow's Super Kicked. Saturday in Timmins, Ontario for Rock Solid Wrestling. And then on Sunday, I'll be hanging out with my guest today. I'll be riding up and down the road with my road wife, Tyler Tirva, because on Sunday, April 28th, we'll be defending our Crossfire Wrestling Tag Team Championships in St. Catharines, Ontario. Then, you know, a week from next weekend, I'll be in Albany, New York for TNA Wrestling, and then my schedule just gets insane with my speaking. I'm going to be in Edmonton. I'm going to be all across Ontario. Then I'm going to be back in Hamilton for Top Tier Wrestling on the 11th of May. Then I'll be back in on the 18th and 19th for in Cincinnati, Ohio. And man, I could just keep going on and on. I'm just looking at my schedule right now, and I could just keep going, but I'm not. Otherwise, I'm going to get blown up because I'm already blown up from chilling stuff and telling you my schedule. But man, whoo-wee, I want to be more busy. Why? Because I only rest when dead. That's right. I'll rest when I'm dead. Right now, I don't need to rest. I just want to keep traveling up and down the roads, doing what I love as a wrestler and a speaker. So hit me up. Hopefully I see you when I'm hitting one of my merch tables at one of those places I just talked about. And I'm just glad that you joined us this week. Join us again next week. I have a guest for you guys. Oh man, I almost want to tell you. Should I tell you? Oh, I don't know. I'll give you a hint. In many circles of professional wrestlers, they say that this guest I have next week and for the next 2 weeks on the show is one of the most influential female professional wrestlers of their generation. That's all I'm going to say. That's enough. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag on who this is, but that's all I'm going to say. And you got to come back next week to listen to this guest and this conversation, because it's going to be awesome. And it's going to be a time where, yet again, you will learn not just why this guest that I have is so awesome and so legendary and so influential, but you will learn the same thing that we learn every week in a whole different, new, and unique way. And what is that? That wrestling is life. Is wrestling. We'll see you next week, guys.
Wrestling is life. Wrestling is life. Wrestling is life. Is wrestling.